Hi, it's Bruce. Well, I had this great video, and YouTube said it's too long, so I'm cutting the intro down to this, and I'm going to my reviews immediately. Okay, sorry you missed a really great intro.
Boss assured them it had been fixed. 37-year-old Alcides Moreno remains in critical condition.
Okay, you'll be seeing a lot of me getting up and down with seeing my stomach coming towards your camera. My camera, your screen. Alright, the first show that I want to talk about is Peter and Jerry, which we saw a couple weeks ago. It's Edward Albee is the playwright, and he wrote the Zoo Story in the early 60s, and he decided to make it a full evening. He added an opening act called Home Life, which he wrote a few years ago. So now it's Act 1, Home Life, Act 2, Peter and Jerry, and the whole thing is called Act 2, The Zoo Story, and the whole thing is called Peter and Jerry. Now, Edward Albee is, I have four favorite playwrights. Edward Albee is probably #1, followed by Tom Stoppard. So we're having a really good season here because I'm seeing Tom Stoppard's Rock and Roll come January, and Harold Pinter, who's having a revival of The Homecoming, which is currently in previews, and David Mamet, who's doing a play called November sometime later, early next year. So all four of my favorite playwrights are going to be represented on or off Broadway. Anyway, I always consider any of these playwrights, any of their works, to be worth seeing, no matter what. So we were very happy to see Peter and Jerry. I had actually never seen the Zoo Story. I had a story that I've hidden for 40 years, and I finally told Bill 2 weeks ago that I actually directed the Zoo Story in college. I had to take a directing class because there were so few theater classes. I'm not a director. When I read a script, I have no concept of how it should look like, what it should look like. I bow with reverence to directors because I am not a director, but I can recognize brilliant direction because I go, oh wow, look what he did with it. So my Zoo Story was a catastrophe. Anyway, Peter and Jerry is not a catastrophe. It's worth seeing, but mostly for the second act, the Zoo Story. The first act, Home Life, I really didn't think added anything. I was very happy to see Bill Pullman on stage again. He was brilliant in The Goat, and he's wonderful here, but the character of Peter is very, very low-key, and his wife is played by Joanna Day. I thought she was quite good, but I really didn't get a lot out of that first act. Contrary, the second act, the Zoo Story, was wonderful, and mostly because of a brilliant performance by Dallas Roberts. Astounding. The whole evening's worth seeing just to see Dallas Roberts in Act 2. So the Zoo Story is very much worth seeing, and Peter and Jerry is worth seeing because the Zoo Story is Act 2. At that performance, at intermission, the cast of Rock and Roll happened to be at that show because they were on strike, and so I ran into Rufus Sewell. Kind of on purpose. I saw him coming, and I just admire him so much, and so I saw him, and I just jumped at him and said, "We rebooked your tickets to Rock and Roll. We're seeing it in January." And he said he hoped it was running because the strike was still going on, and it is running. So I just was tongue-tied because I just looked into those eyes of his, and Mr. Sewell, if you happen to be watching this, you are just have the greatest eyes of any actor I've ever met. And I'm getting tongue-tied again. So on to my next review.
The brothers plunged to the ground 47 stories below. And that's the people police are...
Okay, if you know me, you know that I try to be very optimistic and positive in my reviews. I don't like to dwell on things that I don't like too much, although I will mention them. Cyrano has some really good things in it. It's beautiful. It's got a wonderful performance by Kevin Kline and a really admirable performance by Jennifer Garner. I'm not too familiar with her work. She's a television and movie actress, and I know her, and I know I should know her better. But she was quite delightful in this, and not up to the stature of Kevin Kline. But now comes my confession. I'm just not a big fan of Cyrano. I think the play has two brilliant moments in it. One is the balcony scene where he's speaking for Christian to Roxanne in the balcony, and it's so moving. It's just so moving. And the last scene, I won't give any spoilers because maybe you don't know the plot of Cyrano, but when he comes back at the end and is talking to Jennifer Garner, it's very moving. The rest of Cyrano, Bill loves Cyrano, and he enjoys the play, but I know it must be a good play, but I don't think it's that good of a play. It's not my cup of tea. This production, of course, I would say is worth seeing if you haven't seen Cyrano and you want to see a beautiful production. The set design and the direction are lovely, and you want to see Kevin Kline, you want to see Jennifer Garner. I was drowsy. It was Friday night. We had dinner with my family, Bill's family, my family, and my in-law family, and my niece was our waitress at Hawaiian Tropic Zone, and I had a long week of work. I had a cold that week. I was feeling better, but Friday night I was getting really tired. I don't care for Cyrano, and it did keep me awake, and I did enjoy it. I didn't sleep. I don't fall asleep in plays. I really don't. I can't sleep sitting up. But that I give Cyrano 2.5 stars, and only because of the wonderful performances in it and the beautiful design. 2 3/4 stars. Okay, well, sorry about that. Okay, we are back. It's now Sunday evening and a rainy night in New York. We went to see Cymbeline at Lincoln Center. And of the 3 plays that I've discussed in my blog today, Cymbeline's my favorite. Yep, 3 hours of Shakespeare. Done beautifully. Mark Lamos is the director, correct? Yes. And I didn't take my notes. And it's a beautiful production, and the cast is wonderful. And I like Cymbeline. I like it better than Cyrano as a play. People might think I'm crazy, but I think Cymbeline is very clear. At least this production makes it clear. It's the 3rd time I've seen a Cymbeline in my life. I think it's amusing. I think it's romantic. I think it's dramatic. And this cast was especially good. Especially Martha Plimpton as Imogen. It's lovely, really wonderful and quite moving. And Jonathan Cake is the best. He's Giacomo, and he's a great villain. It's wonderful to bring over English actors from, we saw him at the National do a production of Baby Doll about, I don't know, 8 years ago or so. And he's a wonderful British actor, and very sexy. And he sort of wiped the floor with some of the other people because, you know, these British actors, they're just born to speak this stuff. Michael Cerveris was good. I'm not crazy about Michael Cerveris all the time, but I liked him in this. I think the Times loved him in this, and I would defer to Jonathan Cake as my favorite performance. John Pankow was wonderful, and John Cullum as Cymbeline was also quite good. It was, as I said, very clear, beautifully costumed, beautifully lit, and the last 20 minutes is kind of amusing because it's where they wrap everything up and they come out and they untangle all the thread plots and And the audience gets a good chuckle out of it because it's so cleverly done. So, does anyone not know the ending of Cymbeline? There's a Deus Ex Machina that comes into it. And how many times do you get to see a play with a real Deus Ex Machina? Consult your Latin dictionary if you don't know what I'm speaking about. All right, so that's it for my blog this week. 3 interesting plays, 1 great one, Cymbeline, and 1/2 of a great one, the Zeus story from Peter and Jerry, and 1 2.5 stars for Cyrano. See you later.